So we're back once again like the Renegade Masters that we are. Welcome to this Hot Take season review of myself, the Bearded Wonder, Sean Skirt, and the Balded Wonder, Nigel Seeger. We had planned to record this at the Co-op Live, but we've settled on the Gullens Lounge instead. So, welcome Nigel. It's been another quiet year in the life of Maidstone United, hasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely been one for the ages, hasn't it?
Just a bit. Aged us all, I think, a little bit as well, to be fair, isn't it? But yeah, this is what we're here to talk about today, just to go through what has been an epic season, the most win-tastic season. I think, just looking at the stats, it's the most wins Maidstone have ever had in any season in both guys' pre and post fold. So let's get into it. There's a lot to get through, isn't there?
Yes. I suppose we should start back at the beginning, shouldn't we? But if you can cast your mind back to that sort of summer last year and coming off the back of the National League, relegated before the end of February, wasn't we, really, in all honesty? And, you know, we did say at the time, you know, through a couple of the hot takes that we did, that, you know, it'd be a challenge going back into the National League South. Don't forget George hadn't won a game, so I think the Maidstone stock was pretty low at that point, you know, so there was a lot of uneasiness within the fan base. But, yeah, I mean, I think it was a good summer, wasn't it, in all honesty. We managed to keep a lot of the players that we wanted to keep, a lot of the fans' favourites and that. So I think we went into it with more hope than expectation. But, you know, yeah, it was good, wasn't it?
Yeah, and the pre-season itself, there was 3 wins, 3 losses and a draw. In terms of the players who re-signed or came in, George Fowler, Devontae Aaron-Sibia, Rafe Brown, Harley Earl, Reece Greenwich, Sam Corn, more on him later, Bivesh Gurung, ditto, Gavin Hoyt, Perry Andelo, Razak Common-de-Graft, Lamar Reynolds, Chi and Levi signed up in June, Connor Kelly and Ogo Obi in July, and then August, conveniently, where the season starts, Liam Sol on the last day before the season started, and the final piece of the jigsaw at that time, of course, being one Lucas Kovalan. Definitely more on him throughout.
Yeah, I think that was the from what I remember about the summer activity, it was always that was the goalkeeper game, wasn't it? Who was going to play in goal? You know, I mean, we had several trialists come in, didn't we, at that around about the summertime, and you know, a lot of names bandied about. Stanford was obviously one that was a lot within the fan base, you know, wanted to try and get him back because he'd often previously been with us. But yeah, literally the day before the season, wasn't it? That last training session with a paper bag over the head, and Kovlan was the man. And you know, whether it's by luck or by judgment, you know, it just that kind of gave everybody that boost going into that first game against Slough, wasn't it?
It did. So August finally arrived. The number 1 sign the night before the season began in earnest. The Stones' form was patchy to start with, a win each at home and away, a bit of a beating at Bath in between, and then the 3 draws on the spin. So we'd played 6, won 2. We'd finished 12th at the end of August, which was our second lowest position of the season. But considering, as you'd already mentioned, Nigel, we hadn't won in over 8 months and 25 league games up until that Slough game. So we've had worse. So particular highlights from August for you? I mean, just getting back and winning against Slough would be my one.
Yeah, exactly that. And also, you got to remember that we had that Yeovil game reversed, didn't we, in August as well. So, you know, literally we went to Yeovil and got a 1-1 draw there. So although that was the spell of 3 draws that we got, getting that against Yeovil, one of the teams that were expected to be up there, I think, you know, again, you know, it kind of showed the battling qualities of the team.
Yeah.
I mean, Levi had got off the mark pretty early as well, hadn't he? So I think he scored against the opener against Yeovil. Obviously, they equalised right at the end of the game. But, you know, there were certainly signs there that this team could do something in August. I think it was sort of like, you know, Kovlan, going back to that Yeovil game, I think he made a wonder save in that game, didn't he? I actually went on their the Glovers Cast podcast, and I remember them saying in their review of the game, it was probably one of the best saves that they'd seen at Hewish Park in like all the years they've been watching. So considering they've come down from the Football League, that's quite an accolade to have, sort of thing, really. And
to say that about an ex-Torquay goalkeeper as well.
Exactly.
Stuck in their
Do you know what I mean? I think, you know, people saw what Kovlan was about in that sort of time. You know, we wasn't shipping many goals. All right, we weren't scoring a load of goals. We was very reliant on Levi, but you know, once again, we hadn't had that for the last few seasons. Had we? We hadn't had sort of your out and out striker. You know, so yeah, it was good signs, I think, in August.
And indeed, you did caveat there. Of course, we were very much on the road, probably the first half of the season, to be fair, but certainly in August with the run of away games. But again, mid-table at that sort of stage, considering what we'd had the season before, the months before. Again, we've been in worse positions than that. In September, we had Riley Court getting his professional contract after impressing during pre and early season. Michael Petrasso and Harry Cipriano signed on. Ogo Obi loaned to Chesham even, I'll say that again. Riley Court gets a professional contract after impressing during pre and early season. Michael Petrasso and Harry Cipriano sign on. Ogo Obi was loaned to Chesham, more on them later. We played 6 and won 5 in that particular month. The only loss was here at home to Aveley, and we were in 7th come the end of September, inside the playoffs, and the Stones would stay there for all bar 3 match days for the remainder of the 23-24 season. And of course, 2 FA Cup wins, Stenning and Winchester. Nigel, dare I say dare to dream to you? Will I start you off?
Yeah, well, that was the beginning of it, wasn't it? Really, you said there about that run of unbeaten games. Yeah, if you say that August is sort of like the phony part of the season where all the teams are trying to suss each other out, by the time you come to September, you know, you're getting into the season, aren't you? FA Cup, you know, and we said about it staying, didn't we? You know, and I've referenced it on previous podcasts, but yeah, so from where we got to, you know, again, more on that later, but you know, I remember doing the commentary with Connor from a park bench, and I said it before. You know, then John was doing the camera behind us on the clubhouse behind. Yeah. You know, and it was their biggest day, and it was sort of like, you know, we was the giants, weren't we? We was the ones that, you know, potential banana skin there. You had the football location guys there. Were doing a few interviews before the game, and you know, it was a nice warm day, and it was just, you know, Sol got his hat trick, of course, in that game. And Levi got his customary goal at that time because he was like banging him in at that point, and yeah, that was really the start of the journey, wasn't it? And that was, you know, and it's that momentum that you was picking up as well. Like you said, we lost to Aveley at the beginning of the season. The end of the beginning of that month. Yeah. It was a narrow 1-0, but you know, we then went, you know, on the road in the FA Cup games, and you know, that momentum, you could suddenly see it starting to build, couldn't you? And you know,
see the twinkle in his eye, gleaming away there. So October, we had Joe Gabode come in on loan from the Gills. It was another 6-game month. We won 3 of those, drew the other 3. So you're looking at only 1 loss in 12 across those couple of months there. We then finished the month in 5th, so slowly creeping up the table. 2 more cup wins in that month, 1 each in the FA Cup and the Kent Senior Cup. So of course, Kent Senior Cup win would have been against the Gills here, which was quite a good evening from memory. And then of course we had that week where we seemingly just lived down in Torquay, didn't we? And had the 2 games there. They were very strange, those games, and some of the goals that were scored down at Torquay, very strange couple of games that on another day, for both of those, we could have Torquay with their cup run this season instead of us, frankly.
Yeah, but it's weird, isn't it? You know, how things go. You know, we said when the draw was made, you can't see us winning, you know, particularly when it was made, that it was like literally the week after we were going down in the league game. You think, well, which one do you prefer? Do you know what I mean? You can't, at that point you think you can't get 2 wins against Torquay in the space of a week, can you? You know, as well, we've got a very good record against Torquay. I mean, you put the stats out, and I think we've only lost 1 in like 20 years against them or something like that. Some really observed that we are really their sort of like bogey team, but even that, you thought, you know, they're going to get something, you know what I mean? They're going to, you know, if we beat them in the league, then they're going to get something back. But there was no reaction, was there? I mean, we did the cup game, didn't we? And that bizarre opener when they cleared it, and it just kind of fell into Levi's path, and everyone was waiting for the whistle to blow, and it just ended up in the goal. And then, you know, he got another goal again he missed a penalty. I think did he miss a penalty in that game?
He did. He's certainly in one of the two talking games. He did definitely. Yes.
But you know, it was sort of like it was really weird sort of games really from Torquay again, because you expect them to be one of the teams that are going to be up there, don't you? And you know, they just didn't show a reaction, and you know, and probably the cup game, looking back at it now, is probably an easier game than what the league game was. You know, it's like, but there you go. That was the fourth. Was that the fourth qualifying round game, the Torquay one?
Yes, it would have been in October.
Yeah,
yes,
so
definitely.
that obviously put us into the first round, didn't it? So, and then you really are sort of like into the first round, and you're like, you know, back to where we got 5 years, I think, isn't it, since we got to the first round?
Yeah, it's about
something
that,
like that.
Yeah, pre-pandemic. Yeah.
When incidentally we did taste Torquay that year, the last time we was in the National South, we played Torquay in the first round, didn't they? When they was in the National League, but you know, again, that's when you're looking around your TVs and you're looking for that big tie, and you know, we got Chesham. You know, I mean, as good as that was, you know, you sort of think, you know, winnable game at that point, but it's kind of like, you know, when you're drinking that likes of Portsmouth and Bolton and, you know, all these big Charlton, big teams that are in there, you're sort of thinking, oh, you know, but again, it just helped build that momentum, didn't it, you know?
It did, still rocking and rolling through into November, and we might as well go into November, having mentioned Chesham, of course. A couple more signings in Matt Rush, permanent free from Aveley, and Paula Pyer on loan from Leicester City. We played 8 games in November, winning 6, losing 2. Both of those were away against fellow playoff chasers, St Albans being one of those. Finished the month second, though, at the end of November. And of course, we did have that FA Cup first round game that you mentioned, Nigel, with Alex Horne's Chesham. See you next season in the National League South. Spoilers. And a personal memory and favourite of mine, another last-minute Levi winner at Dartford in the trophy. Yeah. Just expecting Terry Casey to jump up in front of the screen now. So yeah, how was November for you? There was, you know, a couple of cup highlights there that I've dug out, but you know, other than the couple of big shellackings that we had on the road, it was another decent showing from the Stones in November.
I mean, and I think that was when you started seeing the difference. I mean, you said there that Matt Rush come in and you know, what he went on to achieve. I mean, when you consider that he wasn't available for the cup game, he was cup tied. You know, that again shows what the effectiveness of George management, that he can get a player in that's not involved in the cup, but they can still get him scoring. Yeah. You know, so that was the balancing act that we had at that point. From that point on, I think you had players that were coming in, and you had players that were cup tied, and you know, it's that balancing act of trying to keep the momentum going on 2 fronts. And you know, we were just in dreamland then, weren't we? After we got through sort of Chesham game, and then you're in the second round, which equaled what we'd done as a new club. But obviously, you know, that the dream was still to get to that third round. So
it was. More on that dream shortly. Shout out to Dartford. No longer in National League South next season, but I will say, in terms of a commentary position, incredibly close to our dugout on both occasions this season, in the trophy and in the league. It was incredible to be that close to our bench and being involved with Craig and Zach and George, and just hearing a lot more and seeing a lot more than you'd expect coming through on camera and on the airwaves. It was, yeah, to be that close inside the club at the moment is just, well, I mean, I can see it here. But yeah, that for me, a real personal moment at Dartford, just having Levi getting his 17th goal of the season, 17 in the net, 17 on his back. Martin Tyler stood like 30 yards away. On a personal level, that was just... And big up to Martin Tyler as well. Glad all the health issues are clearing up, and he's still working well into his possibly nearly 80s, definitely 70s. And Lord knows we'll be trying at this place. So December came around. Timmy Abraham and Jacob Berkeley-Agapong were signing on, while Aaron Sibiat left on the first of his 2 loan deals. Levi Manche, top league scorer until late on in the season, signed for Bromley. So we played 6 in this particular month, Nigel. We only won the 2 in the end. Finished in 6th at the end of November. We had cup games, including a bit of a blustery beating at Barnet, easy for me to say, and history at home to Barrow in the FA Cup. I have the tune of Local Hero rising in the background there for the one and only Bivesh. Never have to buy a drink in Maidstone again. Gurung with his spectacular winning goal. It's the only place to start, Nigel, for December, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely that. You know, that's just that is it. You know, that's the dream. That is like, you know, Barrow again. You know, when the draw was made, it's like, oh, you know what I mean. You know, it was a bit of a because they were literally. We said it in our notes and you know in our pre-games on that day. They were on a heck of a run. That you know, I think Pete Wilder had just literally got the manager of the month for League Two. They were in the top three. They were in the automatic promotion places. They've beaten some good teams in League Two as well. And yeah, you just know that you know you was in for a tough game, and you know, but despite going behind, you know, it was a cracking atmosphere here. I think it was an early game as well, so it kicked off at 12:30, and I remember we were sort of plugged in to go around the world or something again, you know, and that was the one that you really, you know, for Bivish to get that goal, do you know what I mean? Of all the players, you know. Yeah, it was. You know what I mean? It's a heck of a strike, and you know, just because he's the local lad as well, and you know the story behind all that, and we was the lead on Match of the Day that evening as well, and yeah, it was just special. And you know, you thought at that point, this is it. You know what I mean? This is it can't get any better than this. But little did we know. Do you know what I mean? It's like.
It was a tip of an FA Cup-shaped iceberg, that particular match.
Yeah, it's like, you know, it's that elusive magic of the FA Cup, isn't it? You know, if you had it, you bottle it and you'd make millions on it, wouldn't you? But you know, there's no rhyme or reason to it really, because I say you look at it and you think to yourself, you know, we're literally having to swap our sides around each from game to game because we have players that were cup time because it was what would that been our 5th game we were playing. Maybe 6th game, I don't know, yeah, but you know, it's literally like, you know, and you're thinking, you know, you can't possibly do it, but, you know, I remember going to that game thinking, yeah, I'm confident we can do something here, but I don't know why I thought that, but just...
No, because we've discussed this before, Nigel, you've got to look at the form of the sides that we were coming up against, you know, I mean, obviously the earlier on ones, Sterling and Winchester, no disrespect to them, they all had very decent seasons in the end. Chesham had probably only lost one game, maybe not even lost at all. So in good form, a slight, you know, the level below. Barrow, of course, I'm sure it was like 1 defeat in 17 or 1 in 20, and then I think that was just before they played Wrexham or something along those lines, either side of when we played them. Same with other teams that we'll come on to later on with the run, you know, with Stevenage, with Ipswich, with Coventry, the form they've been in, the positions they've all got in their divisions, and you think that Maidstone United have managed to challenge of an equal ranking in divisions 2, 3, 4, 5 above where they're stationed, and it's testament to the entire squad, you know, behind the scenes as well as on the pitch.
Oh yeah.
To everybody at the club, and it's just, I know we're getting ahead of ourselves, but again, this is just what the FA Cup has done. We've just had a little sniff of that bottle you mentioned of the FA Cup there, Nigel, and it's just done strange things to this place, to this ground, to this club, to this town, to this area this season, and it really was, yeah, it was a heck of a time to be around in December, Christmas coming early, despite the fact in the league, of course, which is something we'll keep coming back to, form wasn't necessarily there, but given the choice,
oh yeah,
there's only one that you're going to take.
Oh
really.
yeah, exactly. Looking back now, you know, with hindsight, it's a wonderful thing, isn't it? But you know, it was a great time to be part of being a Maidstone supporter. You know, you get people coming up to you and saying, you know, what did you think? You know, it's just like, I think everybody can every sort of Maidstone fan can sort of relive a similar story. So it was just magical. It really was.
The new year saw some departures from the Gallagher, with Petrasso and de Graaf both leaving, while Tanga, Fal and Dooku all signed on for the Stones. It was another 8-game month in January. 5 of those were won by the Stones. Finished the month in 4th in the league. 3 cup games. The biggest, of course, as we all remember, was Punjab at home in the Kent Senior Cup. Let's talk about the other 2 first, though, in the FA Cup. We'll start with Stevenage. 3rd round FA Cup here at the Gallagher again.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you're just carrying on that momentum, aren't you? You know, literally before that game, we had the press here again, and we had the proper FA Cup people down. The FA were down here, and you know, had the press conference a couple of days before the game, and it was an early kick-off as well. I remember that. So you know, and it's just again, you know, you take little snippets away from it, don't you? You know, literally, I'd come in that day. Obviously, come in before the gates open because it was like an early kick-off. Going to pick the gear up, and you're George and Craig are sitting there, you know, and they just, you know, and you wish them all the best, and they wish, you know, they say have a good commentary, you know, it's little things like that, you know, the privilege, and then literally you couldn't hear yourself in the Gallagher, like literally an hour before kick-off, because we had the Genco end that was like all tickets, you had to get a wristband, didn't you, to get in there. You know, George was out in the warm-up, geeing the crowd up, you know, and I think that really sort of like, kind of, not shocked Stevenage, because obviously they've played at bigger grounds, but where it's so compact, do you know what I mean? It's yeah, you know, they didn't really get a look in that first half, did they? I mean, you know, just going back to it now, you know, the penalty that Sam Corner got, and then, again, you know, that the irony of that, you know, he wasn't our penalty taker. He only took his first penalty at that Tunbridge game.
Yeah, 5 days before, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was Tunbridge on New Year's Day.
So, you know, and we'd had a spate before Christmas, hadn't we, of missing penalties. And we went had Sol, Levi, and I'm sure there were one or two others that took them as well, because we didn't have a good penalty record up to that point. And, you know, took it, and like Fred said on the commentary, Sam Corn with his plugs in his nose, and you know what I mean? There's still little things like that, do you know what I mean? And yeah, it's all right, they did come at us in the second half, and probably should have scored again 1 or 2 goals, but again, it's that elusive magic of the FA Cup, isn't it? You know, on any other day they'd have buried a couple of those chances. We'd have lost it 2-1, and we'd have just been a footnote. But you know, it wasn't to be, and we won it. And it's like shut out Stevenage, who again were in the playoffs in League One at that point. You know, they literally come off the back of, I think they'd drawn to Portsmouth, who were leading the league, or you know, certainly run them close anyway. And you know, we know the antics of Steve Evans. You know, he's notorious, isn't he? You know, but again, you know, it's just like you go back to the Torquay game, and then you go back to that 2014 game when we played Stevenage in the FA Cup and we beat them. You know, sometimes, you know, you can't explain it, but it's written in the stars, isn't it? You know, it's just like, you know, what can you say? It's just like, then you're just like, you're in the fourth round of the FA Cup. It's like, you know, this is like getting silly there, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? It's like,
very silly. I remember the outpouring after the Barrow game was very emotional for everyone, because it had been that 35 years since
exactly.
the old club
Getting into the third round.
Got there. But then, of course, with the winner in Stevenage, I think it was just more shock than anything.
It was.
Not as emotional in a way.
Yeah, I remember being more emotional, more nervous with the Barrow game, you know, counting down sort of when it was coming towards the end. I remember being more nervous because it was like that, the apple, the carrot that was there for the third round. But I remember being quite composed, do you know what I mean? Although we scored quite late in the first half, and they did have all those chances, but there was just this feeling around that we was going to do it. Do you know what I mean? It was weird. It was a weird sort of feeling, but, you know, yeah, and that was it. And we was in the fourth round, and then it's like, I say, that's when you're sort of like, whoa, you know, this is we're on something really special here.
We were. We'll go on to the fourth round shortly, of course, that being the other main highlight of January. But it was the away form, got to obviously a bit of yin and yang, you know, try and give a little bit of balance. Because the away form in the league around this time was what was keeping the Stones from finishing higher. And it was some losses at both Slough and Havant before we then went to Portman Road. And that Havant game is a stat I always bring out because it's so fascinating, to me anyway. The only game that we lost after leading in the entire season. We were ahead in 39 of the 62 games, scored the first goal, won 30, drew 8, lost 1 at Havant. And of course, we all know what happened to them at the end of the season. And obviously, just so strange to look at statistics like that, considering how many wins we'd had, how dominant the Stones had been whenever they'd taken the lead. And obviously, the Stevenage game is very much, not an outlier. It's very much in keeping with what Maidstone did all season long. When they took the lead, they generally won. So to have that down at Havant was a bit of an aberration in a sense, but it also just showed you that on any given day, whether it's us trying to beat Stevenage or others in the Cup, we had that down at Havant as well, and we can have those slip-ups at any point. But the fact that that was the slip-up in the away form that kept us from staying higher up in the league is just one of those things just sort of bear in mind as the rest of the season rolled on for me, really.
Yeah.
So to Ipswich. Again, we've got to try and bring you down to bring you back up again. We can't constantly stay high. That is the Ronan Keating roller coaster that this season has been. So Portman Road, what was it? It was you were having, was it some food with was it Matt Holland and Martin Keown? I think it was. I seem to recall, wasn't it? Silly little things like that from our perspective.
It was just you just look on the whole day. I mean, going into that pub, we got there early, didn't we? And we'd been there the night before, and they were like, how many do you think you bring? And we're like, well, we sold 4,000. And
hello to Martine McCutcheon lookalike at the bar as well. You know who you are. Hello.
But
it's a perfect moment to do that. Carry on.
She got me tongue tied now. That scene in that pub. Do you know what I mean? And obviously I had to leave a little bit early to go and start the commentary, but walking back over the bridge and seeing just a wall of yellow and Maidstone fans cheering, and that's just one memory. And then you walk into the ground and it's just packed, but it's like equal amount of Ipswich and the Ipswich blue and the Maidstone amber shirts. And again, you go into your ground and they apologised. They gave you a pass. It's like a proper pass of a lanyard and all the EFL. And she's like, "Oh, I do apologise." She said, "I didn't get your photo on there." I'm like, "Why would you have my photo on it?" Do you know what I mean?
I remember doing the Barnet game with Darren in the FA Trophy, howling wind, and you probably remember seeing it on the hot take, some of you. But literally the lanyard being pulled off of us while we're still trying to record the hot take, and you're just like. It's the levels of the hospitality.
Yeah, but we could. It's obviously you could keep it, and then, and then you go into their lounge, and there's a great big picture of Ed Sheeran on their wall, and they've got it set up like a proper press conference, and you go to a bar and you're getting complimentary food and drink, and it's not just like snacks of crisps and peanuts. It's like literally proper sausage rolls and bacon rolls, and because it was an early kick-off, they had like bacon rolls and sausage rolls, like baps and stuff like that. And and it's just like really weird. And then you're sitting in your commentary position, and you've got Talk Sport sitting next to you, and you can see Guy Mowbray and Martin Keown commentating for the BBC, and it's like, wow, it was just like, that was before the game even started, you know what I mean?
Exactly, the S had gotten real, I think.
And even Fred, I remember Fred saying to me, this is just crazy, I mean, it's like proper imposter syndrome, isn't it? It's like, what the am I doing here? Do you know what I mean? It's like, but literally, it's like, and then you come to the game, don't you? And it's just like...
It's the absolute barrage for the first 35, 40 minutes at Portman Road. Maidstone probably could have been 5 down within about 10, 15 minutes of the start. And then the absolute sucker punch of that goal from Lamar Reynolds. Just sheer beauty. Couple of balls down the right-hand side, cleared from that corner.
I think as well, I mean, obviously I've watched it back on the TV since then.
Several hundred
times. Just once or twice,
Just once or twice, yeah.
But when you're from such a high position and you watch it and you can see it unfolding in front of you.
It's that space of the pitch, isn't it, that was there?
Yeah.
Not just on the side, but in front.
That header out from Dooku when he heads it down, plays it out to Liam Soul. It's in your brain, and the touch from Liam Soul, the ball over the top, the touch from Lamar, and then boom, dinked it over. And it's like you know what's happening, and and then they come to celebrate right in front of you, and it's like, God, and I think as well to come off of that sort of like that first half that we had been battered, and I remember Fred saying it on the commentary, we have been literally battered for the whole of the first half, and then you go and produce that. But even at that point, you get to half time, everyone's slapping you on the back, you know, so well done, you know. You know, but it's kind of like, you know, I remember it was like just up from us, we had the Ipswich or probably the Suffolk radio, and Matt Holland was doing their commentary. And I remember hearing him say on the commentary, oh, you know, I'm glad Maidstone have got their goal, you know, it's going to make their day. Sort of like, you know, they're there, never mind. Yeah, exactly that. And you're thinking, and even that, you think, yeah, second half they're going to come out and it's going to, you know, be pretty much of the same. And then when Sarmiento got that, the equaliser, again, you expected the floodgates to open. And then of course they made that triple substitution where they brought on
straight after the goal, wasn't it?
Yeah, they brought on Leif Davis, wasn't it, and Connor Chaplin and a couple of other. I can't remember the other player, but you know
names that were coming
exactly.
on.
You know, you're
like
thinking
Leif Davis is like the best assist provider in the Championship, playing at left back. Connor Chaplin banging in the goals and assists. You know, the players they were bringing on. Might have been Broadhead, I can't remember, might have been the other one who come on, but regardless, 3 top Championship players contributing a large portion of Ipswich's goals so far and to the end of their season. Kudos to them for being in the Premier League. We'll mention them near the end again. But yeah, they do the substitutions and you're thinking, again, it's only going one way at this stage. And yet, George Fowler tries to swap shirts early on the halfway. This is what we said before as well, isn't it? If that had been at a Premier League ground, that gets stopped at that juncture there, rather than you know, what happened, which of course...
Step forward, Mr. Sam Corn. Do you know what I mean? That, as good as Lamar's goal was, you know, and it was a great goal, you know, don't get me wrong, but that moment when Sam Corn buried that, you know, I'm getting emotional just on it now, but when he put that in, you know, literally, because of what, like you say, because they put it on those players, you know, they'd equalise. So, you know, we'd had our day in the sun. You know, Lamar's goal was our day in the sun. That was it, you know. But for him to do that and literally, just that strike, and then watching him from our commentary position, watching him running off to that whole bank of amber, and he's like this to the back of his shirt.
He's facing you guys, and he's...
Well, he was away from us, so, you know, but literally, and that's what I'm saying, when I said it on the commentary, you know, the Amber Army, you know, that you know, if you could get that picture and, you know, with him running towards that fan with the whole of the, it was just like, whoa, that was just like an out-of-body moment, do you know what I mean? So,
I just
Christ knows what it was like playing on the pitch.
Well, exactly. And I remember being in the Cobbold Road stand with a good 4,500, 5,000 of us there on the day, and just, I will always tell everybody till my last breath, when he got played in by Lamar, did Sam Corn, as soon as Sam Corn took that first touch and got played in, I just knew he's going to score this. There's no other outcome. The way that ball come to him, the way he took the touch, and he's out-muscled the defender and stayed ahead of him, and he's just absolutely rifled that into the bottom corner. I just knew as soon as he got there. With the Lamar one, because we can all say it, the difficulties the chap had throughout the season, and for that to be his first goal for Maidstone, a couple more to come, we'll speak on those as well, but for that to be his first goal, his first defining moment in a Stone shirt, was historic in its own way. So the expectancy wasn't there on Lamar's one, I think, is what we're trying to convey, as beautiful and amazing as it was. But with Sam Corn's one, with the form he'd been in, and the fact that was the 3rd round in a row, carrying on, Levi scoring in 4 rounds in a row for the Stones, all the way up to Chesham before he had to depart. So you had, you know, those 2 players banging them in, and you knew that for me personally, I knew that was going in the moment it reached him, and Lamar getting that play into him there. But it was just such an incredible moment, and with both those goals, there's just that brief pause where everything goes quiet, where the shot's been taken. And thinking back on it, it does feel like Hollywood-esque style. It's a good few seconds that pass, but obviously it's just a split second like that, and it's done. But in the moment, when you relive it and when you were there, it's just incredible to think that this is the thing that I always say and probably sets me off, so I'm going to join you, Nigel. But to know that for the next 10, 20, 30 years at least, whenever you watch Match of the Day, the title sequence for the FA Cup will have Lamar and or Sam's goals in it. Because I think the most recent one is probably Bradford City's 4-2 at Stamford Bridge 10, 12 years ago. So the fact that we're, you know, in the realms of Blythe Spartans, Hereford, all sorts of other upsets that have occurred, to be in that pantheon of those godlike performances, those kings that have all come before the next chapter in the FA Cup. The much maligned FA Cup before this season, may we add, of course, and the club have made their feeling known about replays, and that's obviously a sentiment that we echo. We look forward to seeing how next season's format will be, and considering that our club, were the headline makers for the majority of the season throughout this competition, I certainly think that us, along with everybody else, would be aghast at the FA Cup changing beyond recognition. But as a Newcastle fan myself, I look forward to my team flying out to Melbourne in a few days' time to do their post-season friendly against Spurs, and I'm sure West Ham and Wolves are playing in America in the week after the season finishes. But again, we don't need the replays, obviously, according to all of them. And we are going off on a bit of a tangent from a season review, but it's a season that made somewhere involved in the FA Cup, and from a funding perspective, it's not necessarily about the funding. It's the moments that you have.
Exactly.
Maidstone were fortunate not to need any replays this season. I mean, we probably would have liked one at Coventry, to be fair, but that's another story for a little later. But, you know, it's those moments in those replayed games. So many clubs in positions similar to us over the last 30, 40 years financially have been able to rebuild their club from those moments. You know, you look at Burton, Exeter with the big replays against Man U, you look at Sutton and Lincoln, how they've managed to get up through the leagues, and Lincoln especially. So they might not see this as people at the FA, but if they do, two things: let us broadcast from the first round onwards, and yeah, replays. They're not all bad. They are actually quite good, some of the memories. Oh yeah, we had a famous one here about a decade ago, didn't we, against Stevenage? I think we already mentioned that.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have benefited from them before. So that's most of the FA Cup done for Maidstone this season, but we will head back to it shortly, I think. So from the joys of January to the fever pitch of February, Coverland committed for the rest of the season after the Portman Road heroics. 5 games played by the Stones in February, won 2 of them, finished the month in 4th in the league, plus that cup game at Coventry, where the historic FA Cup run, sadly, came to an end. So that really, the only place to start in February. That another trip to another quite literally colossal stadium, Nigel. Just remember spending quite a bit of the day with you before and after the game, and just a huge, you know, colossal arena to play in.
Yeah, there's something about a night game as well, isn't there? Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
When you come down in Coventry and you see it all lit up, and do you know what I mean? You've got the great big badge on, you know, from whichever angle you go, there's a badge on each side, and it's like, you know, again, it's just those special moments, isn't it? You know, pretty much similar to Ipswich. You know, I think, again, with Coventry, you know, you go for your when you're doing the pre-match stuff, you're like literally going in and you're having your meal, and again, it's that imposter syndrome. You're seeing people like Harry Winter, that, you know, journos that are doing it for the, you know, national papers, and, you know, Fred and I were sitting there with the Radio Kent guys, and, you know, the editor of the National League paper. You know, they're all sitting around and you're all just chatting. And the story that I always tell about that one is literally I was sitting there, so the Radio Kent guys had gone off, and there was this guy sitting next to me, and he's like asking me about the team lineup came out, and he's saying, "Oh yeah, what about, you know, I've Gavin Hoyt, he said, I've heard you're captain, you know, how's he doing," and all that kind of thing. And he turns around and he said, "Well, what's your keeper like?" He said, "What's your keeper like?" I said, "Oh yeah, you know, he's, you know, normal keeper, a bit eccentric at times, but you know what I mean, he's a good keeper, he's a good shot stopper, and, you know, he's been with our hero at Ipswich." "Oh yeah, I know. Anyway, nice to meet you." Off he goes and goes out. And Fred's sitting there, he's like, "Oh my God, Nigel, do you know you were just speaking to?" I'm like, No, I didn't know it was. He said, "That was Steve Grizovich, you know, Big Steve, you know, the hero for Coventry when they won the FA Cup in 1987 against Spurs." I'm like, do you know what I mean? You're just sitting there literally talking about your goalkeeper, to probably one of the greatest goalkeepers in you know, FA Cup history, you know, with all their memories that he's got, you know. And then literally we turns out, looks at the TV, and he's been interviewed by ITV with Dave Bennett talking about that said game. So, you know, it's just little things like that you sort of, you know, you take away from that, and it's privilege, you know, to be part of that. And that's, you know, everybody's got their own memories, haven't they, of that. And, you know, and another thing, you know, we went and did the when we went down to the commentary, we went a bit later than what we would normally go down to, but literally that whole, to our right of us, that whole end, the noise coming from their Maidstone fans, you know, that was just, you know, hairs on the back of your neck, you know what I mean? As a Maidstone fan, and, you know, commentating in games where there's a couple of hundred people at some obscure ground, you know, Concord Range or something like that, and there you are, literally, you know, in that massive arena that, you know, and the noise that the Maidstone fans were making, it was just like, it was just surreal and energising, and, you know, everything, every word that you want to describe, you know, it's like, I think it was even mentioned, wasn't it, Karen Carney who was doing the ITV commentary, do you know what I mean? She just said, I can't believe the noise, you know, and that really did come through on the TV coverage as well, so, yeah, but, you know, as for the game itself, you know, it pretty much was a carbon copy of the Ipswich game, but the only difference was that Ipswich took those, Coventry took those chances that the Ipswich failed to take, so...
Because they're about 3 up within about 10 minutes, I think, from memory, weren't they? And then the 2 very late goals, so they got the 5 that, again, we've not mentioned it, but we have done before with the Ipswich media and fans all saying that it should be 5, 6, 7 for Ipswich this afternoon. And Maidstone may well have rode their luck, but at the same time, Coventry didn't ride theirs. They were professional from minute 1 to minute 90, not saying that Ipswich weren't, but they got that early goal, and there was no way back at any point for Maidstone from that. And that's no disrespect to Maidstone. It's all the compliments to Coventry.
You know, looking back at it as a game, Maidstone probably did play better against Coventry.
Yeah.
Whether that's because Coventry had got those early goals, they did kind of ease off a little bit. You know what I mean?
Maidstone to go and play.
Yeah, but do you know what I mean? You know, you didn't disgrace yourselves, and it was just definitely a sort of like, you know, another experience to go and to experience. You know what I mean? It's, you know, Coventry obviously didn't make it to the Premier League this year, but I've no doubt, you know, the team that they're building there, they will be back there in a few years' time. Yeah. So, you have this conversation in a couple of years' time, and you'd have played at 2 Premier League teams. So what we thought wasn't a very good draw suddenly becomes like the dream draw, wasn't it? And it was literally, as we went on, round by round, we were just getting that next little bit of better opposition. And, you know, we've said afterwards as well many times, you know, you couldn't have scripted it, could you? The way it worked out and the way it panned out, you know, at the time it was frustrating when the draws come out, but, you know, it was just like, literally, again, that magic of the FA Cup written in the stars, whatever you want to say. It was just like, you know, it's just memories that's going to last forever, you know.
They will indeed.
It's one of those that you're going to tell your grandkids about, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and,
I was there
and everybody else who wants to listen just bore people with it. But
that's why we're still here. I'm sure we'll be doing that. We'll be getting tanked 4 or 5 at home by a newly promoted side, and we'll be saying to each other, Nigel, God, do you remember Coventry? No. We can lose 5-0 to Chesham at home in the league. We can also lose 5-0 away at Coventry, don't you know? Maybe. Hopefully not, but you get the idea. But February wasn't all about big defeats for Maidstone, valiant defeats. You know, February, there was a corner turn because the start of February wasn't great, and then obviously the Coventry game, and the phrase that we use so often in commentary between all of us in the Stones Live gang is after the Lord Mayor's show. But then I seem to recall we had Yeovil and Torquay in the space of about 4 or 5 days and put them both to the sword at that point.
Yeah, I mean, that was probably the ideal fixtures to have at that point, wasn't it? Because of, you know, as we know, Yeovil went on to win the league, but, you know, they were top of the league. There's a traditional rivalry there, you know, from our Alliance Premier days back in the 80s, you know. So, you know, it was a good time to be a Maidstone fan. You know, we was winning those games, and yeah, I know we lost a couple around, you know, in the month as well, but it was just, you know, you knew what you had to do then, didn't you? The FA Cup distraction had gone, and it was just like, literally, you know, pretty much knew that we was going to be in the playoffs. It's just like trying to get that better position, wasn't it? And yeah, it was just all good at that time.
So the month of March came. Ella Kobe signed a new 2-year deal, so we look forward to him for the next couple of years around the Gallagher. Matt Bentley signed after Dooku finally left. Perry departed, and Sam Corn extended his deal into next year. It's another bumper month for the Stones. It was 8 games played, 6 of them won, finished the month in 4th, plus that Kent Senior Cup penalty shootout win at Dartford. So that momentum, as you've already said, for February there, Nigel, just the form and the momentum kept going and going as the weeks went by, and just the Stones, the confidence to stay as high up in the playoffs as possible.
Yeah.
And they were doing that to a plumb, weren't they?
Yeah, exactly that. I think it's just about, at that point, it's just about getting to the end of the season, isn't it? And just trying to get the position that you wanted to be in. Like you say, Bentley came in and, did all right. For somebody that's coming from outside of the squad, that late in the season, he settled in quite well. We lost Dooku, and probably to be expected, really, because he did come in to sort of fill a gap for the FA Cup, didn't he? Because we obviously had no striker with Levi obviously leaving. But yeah, it was just keeping those wheels turning, wasn't it, really?
Yeah, certainly was. And again, that penalty shootout win at Dartford, so it was the only goal we conceded in the Kent Senior Cup from memory as well. But just good to, I think it was, trying to think, we had I know we won 3 or 4 against one particular side. I can't remember whether that was Dartford or Torquay. It might well have been Dartford, because I think we did 3 against Torquay, didn't we?
Yeah.
But it was 4 against
Dartford. Yeah, we won the trophy
season,
as well,
it?
didn't we?
Yes, it was 2 in the league, trophy, and the Kent Senior Cup.
I mean, it's always good to get a win against Dartford, isn't it? Liam Soul's moment now.
Yeah, of
just
course.
Before half time, getting his goal.
Yeah, it was twice in the month, wasn't it? Of course, it was. That's it. It was similar to the Torquay scenario where we were twice in a week. It was twice in about 4 days, wasn't it? We had the weekend game, William Soul getting the first one there in the weekend game, and then obviously the penalty shootout win. Because I think it was the last time we'd done 4 wins in a season against a side was against Truro in the playoffs, when we went up at Ebbsfleet, of course. So little things like that in the backs of our minds, just going, this could turn out all right this season. We're hopefully going to get there, and as these things do come to an end. So we come to April, and Michael Class and Michael Adepoku were both added at the end of March. We played 9 games in the month of April, won 6 of them, finished 4th in the league in the end. We had the cup final at Bromley and that victorious Kent Senior Cup run, making George Maidstone United's most successful cup manager of all time, a point I always try and remind him of. The Truro loss in Gloucester did cost the Stones a potential bye in the playoffs. We did finish in style in the regular season with Matt Bentley's howitzer and that 5-1 win against Hampton and Richmond. They finally beat Aveley at the 3rd time of asking in the quarterfinals, but it was Worthing and their Don, Ollie Pearce, who shattered the Stones' dreams in the 62nd and final match of this historic season, where they'd won, as I mentioned earlier, they'd won more matches in one season than any Stones side before them. So we'll start with the Farnborough away game. I know you were there with Piers, and that's where Maidstone had secured their playoff spot. Solid performance, Rafe Brown, 1-0.
Yeah, solid.
Another job done, wasn't it?
Yeah, solid performance. I mean, Rafe had a couple of chances in that game, but like you say, it was another job done, and by this time as well, the defence had become a bit more settled. We were playing a bit more of a settled side and kept a clean sheet. And once we scored, I can't really recall Farnborough threatening to score. With it being 1-0, you always sort of think to yourself, they could get a sucker punch, but as we found out later on in the month. But yeah, exactly. It's just like, it was comfortable, and then again, just for me, the disappointing one was that Truro game.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? We'd been down to Gloucester to play Taunton a couple of weeks before, hadn't we? And if we'd just got something out of that game, we'd got the second place. Who knows what difference it would have made? But when we did manage to get into that 5th place with that win against Hampton and Richmond, the 4th place with the win against Hampton and Richmond, so it did give us that home advantage against Aveley. And again, memories are created. Mo Fail, that last-minute goal.
Yeah, last-minute goal that I wasn't commentating on for once. That was nice.
Yeah, it wasn't last minute as such, but it was in injury time, wasn't it? Or 90 plus 2, whatever it was. But yeah, I don't know. It's just, looking back at it now, you want to think you can continue that momentum, can't you? And I suppose it come back to haunt us a little bit with that playoff game against Worthing. We were the better side in that game. Second half, we did dominate it, really. I don't think they really had much, but as you say, Ollie Pearce, he's not the leading goal scorer in the league for like 2 seasons running, or the quantity of goals he's got for the last 2 seasons for a reason, is he? He's probably going to be playing National League next year, and just that one moment of hesitation by Rafe, and that was all he needed, and he was in on goal, and that was it. That was their sort of written in the stars moment, wasn't it?
Exactly. That's just how fine the margins have been all season at this particular level for Maidstone United, and congratulations to Braintree in the end, who went up to the National League in the playoffs alongside Yeovil. Braintree just about getting past Worthing in yet another cracking game down on the coast. It was a brilliant match. So a few stats just to whiz through. I'll twist the pad so Nigel can't see. I'll try and get him to guess some numbers that will guess in game. So most appearances this season. I think it'll be fairly obvious who the number one is.
Lucas Coughlin.
I've given you the clue by saying it's number one, yeah. Then Harley Earl played the 3 of the 4 Kent Senior Cup games. Those were the other 3 games that weren't for Lucas to play in. George Fowler in second on 55, Sam Cord on 54. Top scorer overall for the Stones this season?
Matt Rush.
Well, it's Levi Manchie
Was
still.
it?
Yeah, Levi finished with 20 still. Matt Rush got 15, and Sam Corn, an honourable mention, in 3rd place. Slightly different running order for the league top scorer, of course. Probably want to go with your first answer.
Yeah,
again
Matt
this
Rush,
one.
yeah.
Yeah, Matt Rush, yeah. 15 league goals. He did overtake Levi just before the season finished. So Matt Rush 15, Levi 13, Sam Corn just one short, getting himself to 9 league goals. There was 98 goals scored in all competitions by the Stones, and only 9 of those came off the bench. Little stat there for you. Sleepless few hours I had and rifled through all of those. But it does show that most games that we had already won when we took the lead, mentioned that stat earlier, the 39, only one of those 39 when we took the lead. So there hadn't been too many goals from off the bench because they weren't always needed, and certainly with the lateness of some of the goals, Worthing included, it wasn't necessarily that much time for things to be changed by George and the rest of the management team. Certainly with Worthing, I don't think there was certainly a bit of time left to go when the goal went in, the winner, but at the same time, when your time's up, frankly, and that certainly felt that particular way, that particular afternoon, didn't it? Most goals off the bench, another little stat I managed to rifle up. Manchie and Reynolds managed to get 3 each this season off the bench. Lamar, of course, most notably, got all of those in just the one game at Eastbourne. Got himself that impressive hat-trick. Assist makers, I know Sam Corn will dispute this one. He ended up with 12. He claims 13, but you know who you are on the Twitters and the X's. You can have your fantasy assists, that's entirely up to you. Harry Cipriano in second with 6 assists. Second up there, so very useful down the flanks, of course. And Tanga and Reynolds in 3rd place with 5 each. It shows you the impact Tanga had when he came in for those last 3 months for the Stones. Most appearances off the bench. We had Razak was our most subbed-on player, despite the fact that he left with a good few months left of the season. And Liam Soul and Lamar Reynolds were just one behind him. Most bookings, there you go, there's another one for you. Who got the most bookings for the Stones this season?
George Fowler?
No, he's in joint 3rd along with Sam Bone on 7 each. But Bivesh Gurung got 8. Sam Corn, just the 14.
Yeah.
So, consistent there, getting a booking.
But he didn't get a red card, did he?
Didn't get a red, no, did not get a red. But the most reds, of course, would probably be able to work out who got the most reds for the Stones this season. I'll tell you then for that blank expression.
George Fowler.
No, it's Bivish Gurung and Rafe Brown both got 2 each.
Yeah.
One, of course, of Rafe's was overturned
Rescinded.
at Tunbridge, of course. Player of the season, for me, I would have to say it's between Corn and Coverland. Honourable mention to Levi, Rush and Farl for the Forward Society. The 3 club awards, of course, went to Sam Corn for the Managers and Supporters Player of the Year, and Lucas Coverland getting the Players Player of the Year. Which side is your bread buttered? Is it Corn? Is it Lucas? Is there a third side you're buttering, Nigel? Do tell.
No, not really. I think probably if I had the most improved player, I think I'd go for Bivish.
Yeah.
I think he's done really well, but I would probably go for player. I would go for Sam Corn, I think. You know, just because of the longevity of him being here, I think, do you know what I mean? And that, as I said before, that goal at Ipswich, you know, that's just literally, you know, if he doesn't score that goal, doesn't matter how many heroic saves that Lucas has made in that Ipswich game, you know, we wouldn't be having the same conversation, would we? So, you know, he got the winner against Stevenage. You know, he got the equaliser against Barrow. Then he got the winner against Ipswich, as we just said. You know, he got the winner against Torquay.
He did, great goal. Remember that one? I think he was the player who got the most winning goals this season. Finally overtook Levi near the end of the season. So that was another key stat that I like to throw in.
So yeah, I would definitely say Sam Corn, I think.
And we mentioned Sam Corn, we mentioned Gavin Hoyt in there briefly as well. As I was going to say that Sam Corn has just about now, I believe, made more appearances for Maidstone than Gavin Hoyt has. A few words about Gavin Hoyt, of course, leaving us. Plenty of players leaving us this summer, and plenty more may well come in. We'll come on to those very briefly near the end. But yeah, Sam Corn taking over that mantle, I suppose, and Gavin Hoyt, a great servant to the club for the last few years.
Oh yeah, definitely. You know, he's not so much this season that's just gone. Even last season in the National League, he was in and out of the side a little bit, but he's a model consistency. You know, when you give your ratings for players, he was 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10 most weeks, wasn't he? You know, he's just like, your archetypal sort of pro, and he just brings the other players on. And that's why George made him captain. You know, just because of that. You know, he doesn't come across as a baller. You know, he's not somebody that's going to shout and gee others up, but just by his presence and his consistency in his play, makes him an ideal captain candidate, doesn't he? And he's served the club well, and he said in his interview since he's left, he loves the club and the club loves him. So that's all you need to know, isn't it? If you get that in your career, it's good stuff, isn't it? So
it is. And the man liked my spreadsheet as well when I showed it to him before one of the FA Cup draws. So he's forever in my heart, of course. So honourable mentions for the Under-19 National League Cup winners at St George's Park as well last week. That was a fantastic moment for the club and the youth setup that we have. And we see many of the fruits being reaped and rewarded at the club. Congratulations also to Stenning, to Chesham and Ipswich, all on your promotions this season. Worthy opponents, all vanquished by the Stones, of course, but Chesham and little Alex Hall, we do look forward to seeing you here next season. So, as the late, great Whitney Houston once sang, didn't we almost have it all? Yes, Whitney, we really nearly did, but it wasn't half bad though. So thank you for watching and listening throughout this last season, one of the most memorable and massive, definitely in terms of wins, of course, the most ever in the one season. 9 years ago, when we had the Stevenage game, was the previous best. So yes, the most massive in Maidstone United's history. Memories to last a lifetime. From all of us here at the club, you'll see and hear from us and many others again between now and August 10th. Keep an eye on the club socials for all the new signings and re-signings, hopefully. And until then, as always,
come on, you Stones!
See you in August.